Listen to my absolute nightmare. Now, as a damp specialist, contractor, surveyor, whatever you want to call it, when you get callbacks, there's nothing worse. And this was an absolute horrendous one. It did actually worry me, because you just don't want to be involved in dramas and headaches. I know a lot of people love a fight and argument. I don't want to do that. I just want to go to work, do my surveys, carry out repairs, get paid and spend some time with my family. That's all I want to do. Anyway, let's take you back. So you've got to picture it. About 7 years ago, a lady phoned me up, and she's in the village next to mine, basically with a load of problems with damp in her property, and she wanted to pay for a survey. Now, she had a few people round and they'd all said different things, which is fair enough, and you know, I need to sell her my services by saying why we might do something different or might even be better. And basically, much to my delight, she wanted to do the Rolls Royce of a survey where we actually check everything. And that's what we did. So it's really good when you've got a client that puts that trust in you, and they're basically going to pay you the big one, got to do everything properly. Now with that, it is a lot of time consuming. It's very time consuming, but it gets the results. Now, when I did the survey, at the time she was having an extension built, and the builders were there doing their bits and bobs. We had to check all the drains, and all the drains had been renewed. Probably before she bought it, sometime maybe 5-10 years before. They're plastic, and they're in really good condition. Everything was perfect. So we checked all the mains and everything like that. No problems with the mains, no heating, pressure tests, etc, etc. Now, with the Rolls Royce for a survey, she had gravimetrics and chemical salt analysis. So we took a number of samples. Now, she only had damp in one area, on one wall. The rest of it had been damp proof previously and cement rendered. But she said, whilst you're at it and we're going to all this extensive work, we'd want you to check everything. I said, okay, not a problem. You know, more money, so that's what she wants done, that's what you want done. So that's what we did, we checked everything. Anyway, from there, I done a load of tests. I have to just pull in a minute. You alright? You alright?
Oh, on camera.
On camera. And yeah, basically, just lost my train of thought now. Yeah, so basically, we done all the tests. Everything was absolutely perfect survey-wise, done as much as I could have done. So when we were there, we sort of like discussed a few little bits and bobs about repairing buildings, this, that and the other, because obviously there's lots and lots of opinions on how you do this sort of stuff, which is brilliant. You know, everyone's got an opinion. So once I'd done all the chemical analysis on the salt and all the gravimetric analysis, I had my conclusions. Now, every single sample that I took, despite there being high readings on the walls, they were all dry. Every single sample come back as dry. I'm just going to turn around a minute. So I'm just walking in the shakes, it's pretty hot. And there was salts everywhere. Salts, proper salt bands everywhere. Just typical of long-term rising damp. But if you've got to think about it, the salts are left from when there's been issues, just like rising damp, right? But because it looks like they fixed all the drains, all of the damp technically is stopped now. There is no rising damp whatsoever. It's literally dry as a bone in there, and all the staining that she could see was salts, and also that was realistically probably what had been replastered before. They'd done a load of work when there's been these issues, and it looks like, to be fair, they've done a very good job of it. So compliments to the previous people who've done the damp proofing, compliments to the people who've done the drains. So from there, I've now got my analysis. The rear wall of the property that is now becoming the internal wall of the extension was damp. There's a chimney by there as well, and there was heavy salt contamination quite prominent along there, and a couple of other walls. So all dry and heavy salt contamination. So I basically said, these are your options to repair. One is do nothing. But that's not an option for her, because they're refurbishing the property. So that damp wall, they want it looking all nice because they're spending all this money on a nice extension and what have you. Fair enough. Monitoring it, there's no option in monitoring it because it stains, it's salts. What's the point in monitoring salts? They're not going to get any better, although some might tell you otherwise. Could you put a bit of batten and plasterboard over it? Yeah. Could you cement tank it? Yeah. Could you put a membrane over it? Could you put a DPC in it, cut a physical in it? Yeah, all options. Could you put lime on it? You could put lime on it. Now, everything has a pro and a con. If you put lime back on that wall, it's heavy salt contamination. It is likely it's going to stain at some point. When? I don't know when it's going to stain. So all I can say to them is, if you don't want any chance of staining, you're going to have to put some kind of barrier system up to isolate the salts. Whether that's a sheet of plasterboard, whether you're going to put a bit of tanking cement on there or whatever, or membrane, that is an option. If you don't, you can't accept risk. And this is what a lot of people can't accept, is risk. So we had this discussion, I put it all in the report, I explained my thought process, I said this is what you can do, Anyway, she went for a cement render with a waterproofer, blended in with a gypsum finish to the original, knocked off about a metre high. We did all the work, absolutely over the moon, absolutely happy with everything on there, not a problem. Never heard a peep from them. I think I've seen them down B&Q once, the family down there, said hello, had a little chat and what have you. Happy days, not a problem in the world. Now, what went wrong? What went wrong? So lo and behold, a woman rings me about 4 months ago. She's got damp in her property, this, that and the other, and I was like, okay, chatting away. She's very sceptical, shall we say. There's a car coming with her. Yeah, she was very sceptical. She didn't want to pay for a survey as such. She was questioning a lot about rising damp, does it exist, and lime and salts and damp and this, that and the other, to the point that I knew something's not quite right. Like, her brain has been infiltrated with something she's been looking at online. And remember, rising damp, salts and this, that and the other is such a controversial subject. That was a little butterfly. And causes many an argument online. So you're used to it, this sort of stuff. And I was chatting away and I said, look, you got these damp problems, you know, you're going to be looking at X amount of money for a proper survey to do everything, this, that and the other. And then she's like, well, I've had a survey. And I was like, okay, yeah, professional, this, that and the other. When I purchased the property, they did all the survey then. It was this, that and the other, it was a really good survey. And from there, we've had a load of work done. And I was like, okay. Anyway, it turns out the building surveyor had recommended they go and get a specialist around damp in buildings that specialise in traditional repairs. Fair enough. So with that, she's been and got, dare I say, a lime company in. And I don't mean to say that derogatory or anything or nasty, just saying it's a lime company, that's what they specialise in, lime. They're not damp experts. They don't have anywhere the level of equipment and experience that I have, and that might be making me sound like a bighead. I'm not, I'm just being honest. So they've gone in, they've not taken a single reading. They've not done any form of analysis. They've just basically said that the concrete floors and the concrete render and gypsum are causing the damp problems. And it all needs removing. Now, so the building surveyors come in, they've said to do X, Y and Z, you know, wrong materials, need to speak to a specialist using lime and traditional materials. They've done that, very trustworthy. £30,000 later, and also, if you think about it, the time and the disruption and the hassle, yeah, £30,000 later, moved out the property, they got damp again. So they called the expert back, and the expert's twiddling his thumbs through his hair, messing about this, that and the other. Tend to mark it up, get a dehumidifier and check it, it's just drying down. Every single excuse you can come up with. I've got to stay in the shakes, it's so hot. But I can't stand still because I'm just like hyped all the time. Sorry, I apologise. Anyone who knows me, I just don't sit still, just walking on the phone. That's what I just do. And yeah, so basically she got the hump with them. Just lost complete faith in them. And she'd found me on Instagram. And that is when it all sort of came out. She said, I like your sort of train of thought and your thoughts of process, this, that and the other. She goes, we'd never had all the drains checked or nothing. They'd never recommended this. They'd never done any sampling, never even used a meter, da da da. So when we got through, I said to her, I said, look, have you got the report to hand? And she was like, yeah. And it basically, when she was going through it all, and I said, look, where is this actual property to? Because I knew it was local to me. And she said the address, and I said, look, I've been to that property, I've worked there. And she was like, are you joking? I was like, no. Anyway, with that, you could hear her like it's like alarm bells ringing in her head. Because she knows it was cement. We were talking about it. I said, yeah, I recommended a cement repair. And she was like, why? And I said, well, because what you've got now, you've got these problems. I said, the problem is, lime's not very good with salts. Anyway, you could hear her, like, her thought process, and it's like, she wasn't thinking properly. And basically, I said, look, go away and have a think about it. Chat to your other half, and if you want to come back to me, come back to me. And there's no point, even if you're getting paid for a survey, if somebody don't really want you there and don't have the trust in you, it's not really worth doing it. You know, if somebody's phoning me up and said they don't believe in rising damp, and they're this, that and the other, and they want me to go and do a survey, I wouldn't even go and do a survey from them. I've refused a number over the years where people just got a different train of thought of me. And I don't want to be doing that survey. Anyway, next day, I knew she'd ring back. She rang back and she said, do you know what? It makes complete sense what you're trying to sort of say. And basically, how much is a survey? Well, she had to get walloped for another survey. And I'm not saying it horribly, but I cannot go there and prove after all these years that there's still no problem to the drains. So, you know, she will watch this video. I know you'll be watching this video, and I'm not saying it horrible, but you have to charge the big money for it. You cannot just go up there and just check the walls a couple of times and just think that's it. There's so much money involved. She spent 30 grand, and he moved out of property. So I said to her, we agreed a survey fee, and I said, I'll tell you what, I'll send you over my report for my findings. Now, this report never got sent over by the conveyancing solicitor. I don't know why. Now, it's not saying you've got to, because why have you got to send it over? If you forgot, you forgot. If nobody asked for it, you just forgot. It's such a long time ago. They had nothing to hide. So I sent over the report. Anyway, she messaged me back and said, do you know what, it seems very, very balanced what you've said. So, turn around again. It's sunny. Went and done the survey, checked everything. Literally, everything come back the same as before. Like, drains were all perfect, no leaks, nothing. So done all that sort of stuff. And we done a load of analysis. So she's paid for, or they, shall we say, they've paid for a Limecrete floor and lime plastering and rendering. There was no need. So the building surveyor, when I seen the report, she had it all printed out there. He'd used a damp meter, Protometer Survey Master, which is a fantastic piece of equipment, on scan mode. Nothing on pins, obviously don't want to put any pin marks in there. So basically what it shows is, there's high readings there. The surveyor has confused the high readings with the Survey Master as being damp, when actually they're just giving a high reading because there's salts there. There's no moisture there whatsoever. The walls, well, when I say that whatsoever, they were dry when I went there ages ago, and also when I went there again. So I can only presume those walls have not got wet again. And at the time of survey, a few months before, that they weren't wet then. I can't actually 100% prove that. It's just a factual opinion. He'd done nothing to say, no, sorry, she had done nothing, the surveyor had done anything to say otherwise. Now, I explained then, the problem is now you've got staining all around at low level and high readings. What do you do? Now, that's not my problem now. All I can say to them was, well, you can accept that risk of all that paint peeling off and what have you, and salting up, or you're going to have to put something else on there. You could put another lime on there, which is sacrificial, and again, you might have to start messing about with that and repairing it. Or dare I say, you hack it off at low level and put some form of barrier system on like we discussed before. But her question to me was, who is at fault and who's liable? Well, whilst I have done my RICS expert witness certificate of training and what have you, that's not what I enjoy. I do not want to get into arguments. So all I said to her was, I said, you've got my findings, you can go back to them and ask the questions. I don't want to be involved with stuff like that. That's not what you've paid me for. You've paid me literally to come and do your damp survey and give you some form of an opinion on what's going on and why it's damp. And she's happy with that, with what I said. She was very happy with what I just said about all that sort of stuff, which was fine. But this isn't unusual. Now, it did get me worried because I hate having to explain myself when somebody has got the sort of like hump, and she was a little bit funny with me about it all. And if anybody spoke to her, you know, she'd say the same thing. You're on the phone to me and you said, oh, it's me done the work there. And it's bad because people hear about you. There's a local little villages and everything, and people can get an opinion, and they can be sort of like, you know, all the kids go to schools and stuff, the same schools, and the mums hang out and that. You don't want all that hassle, like bad mouthing about stuff. But nonetheless, it's very damaging for your business. So from there, I've left it. I've done as much as I could do. I gave what I think is the best advice the first time and the second time. So I got a question to you guys. Do you think what I did was wrong, right? Like, what would you have done in this situation? You know, I'm not blaming the building surveyor. I always stick up for every single surveyor. I don't exactly think they should have gone down the route they've actually gone down as a repair. So the reason I'm going to say that is, lime is a fantastic product. I love lime, I use lime, it is brilliant. It is not good where there's salt contamination. Now, you can mix up cow poo, what they do, and put it on there and try and stop it, all this, that and the have you. But the bottom line is, those salts will come through. If the customer can accept risk, that is fine. But lots of clients, lots of landlords don't want to accept risk, so that isn't fine. From there, what we've got to think of, people are on about all these buildings are damp because of cement, this, that and the have you. Actually, all these damp problems were way before cement, when there was just lime. Loads of it. Hence, why do you think they actually invented a damp-proof course? It was to stop rising damp. Why do you think there's patented damp-proof courses that were made years and years ago? It was to stop damp. So damp's been a problem for a long time. How you fix it, it's always going to be a bit controversial because there's different camps. But the bottom line is, it's down to the customer. In my opinion, it's the customer. If that customer wants me to go and put lime all over those walls and accept risk, then that's what I do, if that's what they want. But don't be calling me back if there's a problem. But we go back to Limecrete floors. Now, English Heritage were involved in a load of this stuff with Bath University, down by me. And the chap that did it all, I can't remember his name now, I think it was Kevin, I can't remember. I spoke to Kevin, let's just say it was Kevin. Lovely chap, and he explained to me exactly what he was doing, how he'd done all his tests and this, that and the have you. And basically what he found was when they put membranes over the floors, DPMs over the top of the floors, it made no difference to the walls. So basically showing if you had a concrete floor with membrane, it made no difference to the wall moisture content whatsoever. And you know, you've got to look at this. If you've got a suspended timber floor, that's made of wood, right? And if you think about it, you've got lots of air movement underneath there and what have you. How many buildings have I gone to, and many of others, and seen, even if there's damp from a bit of bridge DPC or whatever, there's rising damp there. I've drilled loads and loads of walls, quantitatively, for moisture when there's been concrete floors and there's damp, and also when there's concrete floors and there's no damp. And I've done absolutely hundreds and hundreds of samples beneath DPCs and above DPCs on, say, 30s and 40s and 50s buildings where the DPM is the floor and is like a thermoplastic tiles, just because I want to understand what's going on. And sometimes the moisture content's so low. So what I'm basically saying is, when they've done all their tests with the Limecrete floors, they proved they didn't make any difference whatsoever. And, you know, it's all right, yeah, you're going to make the floor warmer, but then that's what your customers got to pay for. Like, I'd like my floor warmer in my 1970s house, but for me to rip it all out and put underfloor heating in a screed like a modern system is thousands, just like a Limecrete. So I'd be happy just to put my slippers on in the winter. Now, how much moisture is in a saturated concrete floor? It's going to be a very low percentage. You might find 5% or something like that, 5% free moisture. So like 5% of its weight is water, which is nothing. So it comes back down to the thing again. When you've got the old flagstones like you have in the basements and stuff like that, in quarry tiles and all like glazed up and this, that and the other, how much moisture do you think evaporates from those little gaps? Nothing. It's literally nothing. So technically speaking, if you're speaking how a lot of people have been thinking before, that's displacing moisture and causing moisture to rise up the wall. That floor needs digging out. No. And I'm just going to go back to the basics again. I have never, ever, ever, ever seen not one case study where someone's done gravimetrics, full quantitative moisture analysis on a wall and including a proper survey and proved the concrete floor is causing damp. Never seen one. And I've never ever seen one where they've done this Limelight floor installation during and after. Never seen a single one. I've asked a few people before, never done it. Now, if you remove plaster and you do all these other little bits and bobs and this, that and the other, perhaps you think what you've done has worked because you've got that perception. Now, you could have just been dealing with salts. You might not have been dealing with moisture. You could have been dealing with condensation. And when you've upgraded the property, you put some new ventilation in and the ventilation's got rid of it. So I'm not picking on the Lime Boys. I love it. It's a brilliant material. But if you don't know what you're doing, go and get the advice and make sure you do your research. Now, you know, this has been published by Historic England, and I'm not saying everything they publish is right, because you can see some of the stuff they've done wrong previously, which is well documented, exactly the same as SPAB. And again, I'm not working the boot in here, I'm just being completely honest. You need to make sure when you're dealing with these massive sums of money that you're not tucking people up. Now, the joint position statement, not a big fan of it, and I'll do another video about that, why I'm not a big fan of it, and how people are using it to get out of doing things properly. But the joint position statement, where would that fit in the joint position statement? You've done a non-invasive survey and stripped the building to give the client no options. No diagnostics whatsoever, just go and spend 30 grand and move out the building. It doesn't make sense. So it don't, oh, my alarm's going off, sorry. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, what can we learn from this today? Take out. See, I want you to let me know what your thoughts are. I would appreciate it. I'm turning around again. It's hot. Let me know your thoughts. I'd really, really appreciate that. And also, like, I think sometimes you just got to sit back and think about the job and the problem in hand. Think about the customer. Think about the financial situation, the financial burden they've got as well. You know, we've all worked for customers that are millionaires and they're just chucking money at you. Just get on with it, do what you think's best, this, that and the other. But also we've worked for customers that have got no money. And you're telling them they've got to spend £1,000. It's like telling them they've got cancer because they've got no money. But that's the reality. That is our job. We've got to help and we've got to listen. So if I can give one piece of advice for everybody now, is listen to your customer, listen to their situation, find out what's going on, give them the best advice you can, and sit on the fence and be a bit balanced, because somebody here is going to have to pay a lot of money to somebody. There's going to be a lot of explaining to do. Fortunately for me, it's not me, which makes me really happy, and the client is very happy with me from the survey. Yeah, you could say I've earned the 2 survey fees off it, which is great, but the bottom line is that wasn't really what the whole thing was. I just wanted to go and do the job and just forget about it. So yeah, basically. But if you've got this far, thanks for listening. I'm going to do a few more of these long forms because I find this interesting. It's a bit like a podcasty sort of thing, like completely different to my normal sort of like videos I do. I do a lot of short videos and what have you. But if you're interested in building defects, damp, my thoughts on stuff, like, you know, I'm not saying I'm the expert, that I've got the best opinion. There's lots of people out there that really do know their stuff, and there's lots of people that provide thought-provoking content. and I'm just here giving you a balanced opinion on what I think. Now, I don't want to upset people, that's not what I'm here. But if you can see it from my point of view, how I was and how I felt, when I think I didn't do anything wrong. And, you know, I know the lady that surveyed this building, she probably hates me now. Hates me. But do you know what? She never, ever seen my report previously before she'd done. So, there you go. She's got no opinion. She probably trusted this other person that she sort of like hoodwinked to say, you know, they're a good company, this, that and the other. I don't know. And she probably didn't think they were going to cost that much money, because a lot of people, when they do a building survey report, they do it, send it, and they never have any contact with a client until they just give them a little run through what's gone after. When all the work started, they never normally come and look at the work over again. So you can see it from my point of view. Well, I'm always thinking, in this case, I've done everything right I could have done. I didn't do anything wrong. But let me know your thoughts, and we'll catch up with you guys soon.